Alien girl stunned by human size. It's too big. The command deck of the Cathari trade vessel Dawn Path was built for many species, but even then, it felt too large for her. The floor vibrated softly beneath her feet as the ship drifted through open space. Lyra's people were not warriors. They were observers, builders, and careful thinkers. Her species evolved on a low-gravity world where everything grew light and narrow. Ships were small, tools were delicate, strength was measured in patience, not force. That was why Lyra had chosen the observer path. She watched, she learned, she recorded, and right now she was watching something that made no sense. "Repeat the scan," said Commander Veth, his voice tight. The scanner officer did not argue. His long fingers moved fast across the glowing panel. Lyra leaned forward. The signal appeared again, a single contact, but the size reading was impossible. That cannot be right," the scanner officer said. Commander Veth stepped closer. "Say it," the officer swallowed. "Mass reading equals a capital station." Silence spread across the bridge. Lyra's breath caught. A station, out here. They were in an empty system, no trade lanes, no colonies, no reason for anything that large to exist. "Could it be debris?" someone asked. "No," the officer replied. "It's moving, controlled movement." Lyra felt her chest tighten. Her small heart beat faster. A station-sized object moving like a ship. Commander Veth turned slowly. "Origin?" The scanner officer hesitated. "Human." The word landed heavily in the air. Lyra had heard of humans, everyone had. They were new to the wider galactic network, but stories about them spread fast. Humans came from a heavy world. High gravity, harsh conditions, dangerous storms. Their bodies were dense, their bones thick, their muscles strong. Even so, no one expected this. "That size reading must be wrong," said a navigation officer, but the scanners did not change. The contact grew clearer. The stars behind it began to disappear. Lyra's eyes widened. Something vast slid into view on the main screen. Metal and layered armor reflected faint starlight. The ship's shape was long and wide, with deep structural lines and massive sections that looked more like buildings than hull plating. It did not glide. It arrived. The bridge lighting dimmed slightly as the object blocked distant suns. Lyra whispered before she realized she was speaking. "It's too big." No one corrected her. The human ship dwarfed the Dawn Path. It was not aggressive in shape, but it carried weight, purpose, presence. "This is trade vessel Dawn Path," Commander Veth said, forcing calm into his voice. "Unknown human vessel, identify yourself." There was a pause, long enough for fear to creep in. Then a response came, steady and clear. "This is human exploration vessel Atlas bound. We received your distress signal. We are here to assist." Lyra blinked. Assist. She looked at the tactical displays. There were no weapon locks, no hostile signals. The massive ship simply waited. Commander Veth exchanged glances with the senior officers. "We did send a low-power signal," he said carefully, "but we did not expect it to be answered." The reply came quickly. "Human vessels are designed to respond to any call for help. Please advise your status." Lyra felt something strange stir inside her. Confusion mixed with relief. They had not known the humans were nearby. They had not known anyone would come at all, and yet this enormous ship had answered. "We have minor system damage," Commander Veth said. "No immediate danger, but repairs are slow." Another pause. "Then, understood, we can provide assistance. With your permission, we will approach at safe distance." Commander Veth looked around the bridge. No one objected. "You may approach," he said. The human ship moved, slowly, carefully. For something so large, its motion was controlled with surprising precision. It stopped far enough away that its gravity wake barely touched the Dawn Path. Lyra released a breath she did not know she was holding. A new signal appeared. "They are requesting to send a small delegation," the comm officer said. "Non-military." Commander Veth turned his gaze toward Lyra. "Observer Lyra," he said, "you will accompany me." Her eyes widened. "Me? You are trained for cross-species interaction," he said. "And you noticed the size first." Lyra nodded, though her hands trembled. Moments later, she stood inside the transfer chamber, wrapped in her observer cloak. The air hummed as systems synchronized. The docking completed with a deep, solid sound. The door opened, and Lyra froze. The corridor beyond was enormous. The ceiling rose far above her head. The walls were thick, layered with visible reinforcement. Lights ran along the sides, bright but soft. The floor felt solid in a way she had never experienced before. Each step echoed faintly. Then the humans appeared. They were tall, broad, dense, but they moved slowly, carefully. One human stepped forward. He wore a simple uniform, dark and plain. His hands were empty and open at his sides. "I am Captain Hale," he said. His voice was deep but calm. "Welcome aboard the Atlas Bound." Lyra had studied human posture signs. She recognized the stance. Non-threatening, respectful, she bowed slightly. "Observer Lyra, thank you for responding." Captain Hale inclined his head. "We're glad we arrived in time." She looked around again, unable to stop herself. "This ship," she said quietly, "it is larger than anything we have recorded." The captain's expression softened. Not pride, not arrogance, just understanding. "We build big," he said, "because space is unpredictable." They began walking. Lyra struggled to keep up, her short steps tapping quickly against the floor. The humans adjusted their pace without comment. As they passed open sections, Lyra saw more of the ship, cargo bays that could hold entire fleets. Structural supports thick enough to survive massive stress. Systems designed with layers upon layers of backup. "Is all of this necessary?" she asked. Captain Hale considered the question. "Necessary?" he repeated. "Maybe not always, but when something goes wrong, it helps." They reached a wide observation window. Outside, the dawn path looked small, fragile. Lyra felt a wave of realization pass through her. This ship was not large because humans wanted to dominate. It was large because they expected things to break. Because they planned for the worst. "Your people live on a heavy world," Lyra said. "Yes," Hale replied. "Does that shape how you build?" she asked. "It shapes everything," he said simply. She nodded. For the first time, the size of the ship no longer felt frightening. It felt steady, safe. Somewhere deep inside, Lyra understood that this was only the beginning. The galaxy had measured humans by stories and rumors, but soon it would measure them by something else entirely. What they chose to protect. Lyra could not stop staring. The corridors of the Atlas Bound seemed to stretch forever. Every hallway was wide enough for multiple alien species to walk side by side. The ceiling arched high overhead, lined with panels that shone with soft light. Even the handrails were thick and solid, as if they were built to survive the weight of mountains. For Lyra, who was barely taller than a small crate, every detail was overwhelming. She had grown up in corridors only a few meters high, where tools and machinery were all delicate and light. Humans, she realized, lived in a world that required strength, and their ships reflected that. Captain Hale walked beside her, calm and steady. His steps did not rush, but each one carried power. Lyra felt the floor vibrate slightly with every movement, and she tried not to falter. "You are smaller than I expected," Hale said, noticing her struggle to keep pace. His voice was calm, almost gentle, as if he understood without being told. I am," Lyra admitted. "My people are not built like yours. Our gravity is low and our ships are well smaller." Hale nodded. "We notice. That is why we adjust." No one should feel unsafe on this ship. They entered a massive chamber, brighter than the corridors, filled with consoles, screens, and devices that hummed softly. Lyra felt her jaw drop. Every screen was large enough that several aliens could read them at once. The floor panels were reinforced, the walls lined with visible structural supports. Even the ceilings had thick beams running across them, giving a sense of strength that seemed impossible. "This is the command hub," Hale said. "We control everything from here." Lyra moved carefully, almost afraid to touch anything. Every object seemed heavy. Even a pen looked like it could be a weapon if thrown, and yet nothing about the humans in the room was threatening. They worked quickly, efficiently, but there was no rush. Every hand movement was deliberate, precise. "They are precise," she whispered to herself. Hale overheard her. "Precision is important," he said. "Size alone does not protect you. Care does." Lyra nodded slowly. She had heard stories of humans being reckless because of their size and strength. But these humans, they were careful, aware, and thoughtful. It was unlike anything she had imagined. A screen flashed suddenly, drawing her attention. Lyra's heart leapt. It showed a blip in nearby space, another vessel moving toward the system. Not one of the fleet, something else. "Unknown ship," Hale said, already moving to another console. "We have company." The comm on the bridge shifted subtly. No panic, no fear, just focus. Lyra followed, trying to understand what she was seeing. The vessel was fast, small, and aggressive. Sensors indicated weapons. This was the first real sign of danger since she had boarded the Atlas Bound. "They are approaching the dawn path," Hale said, pointing to a display. "They might be hostile." Lyra's stomach tightened. She looked out the observation window. The Dawn path seemed fragile compared to the massive human vessel. She could almost imagine it being crushed by a larger enemy. You don't seem afraid," she said. Hale glanced at her. "We do not need to be. Our ship can handle what comes, but we also prepare because space is never predictable." He gestured toward a side corridor. "Come, I will show you something." Lyra followed. The corridor opened into a large maintenance bay. Massive tools hung from the walls. Vehicles rested on the floor, built for repairs that would take dozens of small alien ships to accomplish. Lyra felt her small hands tremble. Even the smallest wrench here seemed like a crowbar on her world. "These tools, they are enormous," she said. "They are designed for humans," Hale said simply. "And to repair damage quickly, we expect things to break. It is better to be ready than unprepared." He paused, looking at her carefully. "You must understand something. Being large is not about dominance. It is about responsibility, protection, survival." Lyra felt a warmth in her chest. She had always thought of size as a form of threat, but here it was different. The humans used their size to help, not harm. "Will they attack?" she asked, pointing to the blip on the main display. "They might. We will be ready, but we do not attack first. We only act to defend." The door to the observation deck opened suddenly. Another human entered, carrying a small device that glowed softly. He moved with care, even though he could have easily carried it with one hand while crushing it. "This is our field engineer," Hale said. "He ensures our defenses are functional. We do not rely solely on size." Lyra nodded. Every moment she spent on the Atlas bound taught her more about humans. Strength alone was not enough. Intelligence, preparation, and care made them something extraordinary. Suddenly, the alarm blared. Red lights flashed. The unknown vessel had opened fire, small energy pulses striking near the Dawn path. Lyra jumped, clutching the edge of a console. She expected explosions, damage, panic, but Hale did not move in a rush. He calmly directed power to shields, rerouted energy to structural support, and issued orders that the human crew followed without hesitation. The blast struck the Atlas-bound's outer shields. Sparks flew on the view screen. The human vessel shuddered slightly, but it did not falter. Lyra's eyes widened. She had never seen a ship so large withstand such force and remain calm. It was incredible. "They can take it," she whispered. "They must," Hale replied, "because others cannot." Lyra followed him to the side corridor again. They were going to launch support drones, small ships that could assist the Dawn path. She watched as the humans prepared them. Each drone was massive compared to her size, but the humans handled them like they were toys, careful, precise, intentional. You handle things so carefully," she said. "Even though you are so strong." Hale smiled faintly. "Strength is useless if you are careless. Intelligence, planning, and care, these are what make humans formidable." The drones launched. Lyra watched as they moved toward the smaller fleet ships, deflecting attacks and reinforcing weak points. Every movement was coordinated. Every human on the Atlas bound acted in sync. She felt awe and something else, respect. The unknown vessel fired again. One of the Dawn path's smaller engines was damaged. Sparks flew across the hull. Lyra flinched, but the humans did not panic. One of the Atlas-bound's drones intercepted debris. Another launched a repair pod that mended the damage almost instantly. Lyra could not believe her eyes. What would have taken dozens of small alien ships and hours of effort was done in minutes. They save everyone," she said softly. "Yes," Hale said. "That is the point. We do not let others suffer if we can help. We can take what others cannot, but we do it with care, not recklessness." The blip moved again. The unknown vessel fired its final burst before retreating into the void. Sensors showed it leaving the system. The Dawn path was safe. The trade fleet was safe, and the humans remained calm, methodical, and unbroken. Lyra exhaled slowly, trying to let go of the tension. She realized she had been holding her breath for minutes. She looked at Hale. I thought humans were just large, but now I see you are something more." Hale's expression was serious but kind. "Size alone is nothing. What matters is how you use it. You can be large and careless or small and thoughtful, but humans, we try to be both large and responsible. That is why we survive where others fail." Lyra nodded, absorbing the lesson. She had witnessed her first real human strength, not just physical but moral. Capacity for responsibility, willingness to protect. As the fleet began to recover from the attack, Lyra walked beside Hale through the Atlas bound. She realized that size could be intimidating, but size with care was reassuring. She felt safe even in this massive ship, surrounded by creatures so strong they could easily crush her world. And yet they chose to protect instead. Somewhere deep inside, Lyra knew that this was only the beginning. She had seen what humans could do. She had walked beside them. And the galaxy would see them too soon in ways no one had expected. For now, though, she focused on the present. She observed, she learned, and she began to record her impressions. Humans were not only large, they were a promise. A shield for those who could not defend themselves. And as the Atlas-bound drifted through the stars, Lyra felt a spark of hope she had never felt before. Perhaps size could be a gift. Perhaps humans were the proof. Lyra could not sleep. Not really. Even though she was back on the dawn path, the images of the Atlas-bound haunted her mind. Every corridor, every hallway, every massive panel and structure, too large for her world, yet carefully designed. The humans had moved through it as if the size was normal, as if it had always belonged to them. She paced in her small cabin. The rest of the fleet had settled after the minor attack, but Lyra's thoughts were far away, still aboard the human ship. She remembered the way Captain Hale had spoken. Another vessel, larger and more dangerous than the first, was approaching. This one was not small. It was a warship, sleek and armed, moving with deadly precision. "Brace for impact," Commander Veth shouted. Lyra grabbed the edge of the console. Her small body shook as the dawn path vibrated. She looked toward the human ship. The Atlas-bound moved forward immediately, sliding between the warship and the fleet. It was enormous, too big to be real. And yet here it was, positioning itself as a shield. Lyra's breath caught. She had never seen anything like this. Even if her species had attempted such a thing, their ships would crumble, but the humans, they held steady. "Captain Hale," Lyra said over comm, her voice trembling. "Why are you doing this? You could." "Save them," Hale's voice was calm. "Yes, that is why we are here." The enemy warship fired. Beams of energy struck the human vessel. The hull shuddered. Sparks flew across the shields. Lyra's heart raced, but the Atlas-bound did not falter. Its energy shields absorbed the damage. Reinforcements kicked in automatically. Repair drones deployed instantly, moving toward weakened sections. Every system had a backup. Every crew member acted without hesitation. Lyra realized the truth. The ship's size was not arrogance, it was necessity. The human vessel was built to take what others could not endure. They planned for this," she whispered. "Every part of the ship, every layer," Hale's voice came over comm again. "We expect the worst. Space is dangerous. We protect what is fragile. That is why we are big. That is why we survive." Lyra could only nod, even though he could not see her. The enemy ship fired again. The dawn path shook violently. Alarms blared. Other fleet ships scrambled to evade, some taking damage. But the human ship remained in place. Lyra felt fear, then awe. The humans were not invincible, but their size, their planning, their precision, it gave them the ability to stand where others could not. "Watch carefully," Hale said. "We are about to deploy the field units." A massive bay door opened on the Atlas-bound. Smaller ships, sleek and strong, launched instantly. Lyra saw drones, rescue pods, and armored craft, all controlled by humans, all working in perfect harmony. One drone raced to a damaged trade ship. Lyra watched as it held the hull steady while repair units reinforced it. Another rescued crew members trapped in a small shuttle, carrying them safely back to the Atlas-bound. Lyra could hardly believe what she saw. The humans were using their size to protect others, not to dominate. "They save everyone," she whispered again. "Even the smallest ships." "Yes," Hale said. "No one is left behind." Lyra watched as the enemy ship fired again, but the drones intercepted every attack, each one moving with incredible precision. Humans climbed outside the massive Atlas-bound in reinforced suits, repairing external panels while the battle continued. They moved like giants, yet carefully, as if aware that a single wrong motion could destroy someone else. Lyra's eyes widened. One human lifted a fallen support beam alone, holding it in place while repair bots completed their task. He could have crushed her small ship with a single movement, yet he acted with caution. "They are careful," Lyra said, "even though they are so strong." Hale's voice came calmly over comm. "Strength without control is useless. Power without care is dangerous. That is why we are prepared. That is why we endure." The enemy warship began to retreat, realizing that it could not break through the humans' defense. Its attacks became weaker, less precise. Finally, it vanished into deep space. Lyra exhaled slowly. The Dawn Path had survived, other fleet ships had been protected, not a single life was lost, and the humans remained steady even after taking the brunt of the attack. She walked to the observation window. The Atlas-bound towered above the fleet, massive, calm, almost peaceful despite the battle scars. Lyra realized something important. The humans were not just large, they were responsible. Their size was a tool for protection. Their power was a shield for others. "Why do you do this?" she asked Hale, still in awe. "Because we can," he replied simply. "Because if we do not, no one else might. That is the choice humans make." Lyra's heart swelled. She had thought humans were reckless giants. Now she knew they were something more, something the galaxy had never seen before. The Dawn Path and other ships began to move again, recovering from the attack. The humans guided the fleet through safer paths, scanning for hidden dangers. Lyra followed Hale through the ship's corridors, seeing more of the massive vessel. Every room, every system was built not for comfort, but for survival. "They are preparing for everything," she said quietly. "Not just attacks, anything, disasters, accidents, everything." Hale nodded. "Space is unpredictable. We build to protect, not to show off. That is why the ship is so large. That is why humans endure." Lyra paused, looking at the walls. She thought of her small world, her fragile ships, her careful tools. She realized how different humans were, not just in size, but in mindset. Humans planned for every possibility. Humans carried the burden of responsibility in a way no other species did. "And you do this for strangers?" she asked. "Exactly," Hale said. "We help because we can. We protect because we must. Size alone is nothing without purpose, but size with purpose, that is power." Lyra felt a spark inside her. She had never thought of size this way. She had never realized that giants could be gentle, that strength could be used to save rather than harm. The fleet reached the outskirts of the system. Lyra saw the human ship still hovering above them, massive and steady. The enemy had gone, but the humans had not moved. They waited, ready to act if needed again. Lyra turned to Hale. I want to understand," she said. "Your people, your size, your power, all of it. I want to learn how humans think." Hale smiled faintly. "Observation is the first step. You have already begun. But true understanding comes from experience, from seeing it in action, and from walking beside us." Lyra nodded. She felt excitement, fear, and curiosity all at once. The human ship was too big, too powerful, too different, but now she understood. It was not something to fear. It was something to respect and learn from. As the fleet moved safely away from the system, Lyra recorded her observations. Every corridor, every massive room, every careful human action, she wrote it all down. She knew that when she returned to her people, they would not believe her at first. No sensor could capture the feeling of walking beside such giants, of seeing strength used with care. But she had seen it, she had experienced it, and she would tell the story. The humans were not just large, they were protectors, they were guardians, and their size, once so frightening, was a promise. A promise that no one would be left behind, that even the smallest ships and beings could survive in the vast, dangerous galaxy. Lyra looked at the Atlas bound, its massive hull gleaming in the light of distant stars. She whispered again, softly, almost to herself, "Size alone is nothing, but size with purpose, that is power." And she knew the galaxy had never seen such power before. The stars stretched endlessly before the fleet, black and cold. Lyra floated in the observation deck of the Dawn Path, her small hands pressed against the glass. Every eye on the bridge was fixed on the enormous human ship hovering ahead, the Atlas bound. It had already proven its strength once, defending the fleet from a smaller enemy. But now, new signals approached from the deep void, larger, faster, and more organized. Lyra's stomach tightened. "They're coming," said Commander Veth, his voice steady but tense. Lyra swallowed. She glanced at the other fleet vessels. Many were small, built for trade or travel, not combat. Even the larger ships looked fragile next to the Atlas bound. And yet she felt a strange calm. The humans had already shown their purpose. Their size was not arrogance, it was a shield. "Captain Hale," Veth called over calm, "we do not have enough ships to repel them." Hale's calm voice came immediately. "Then we will hold the line. Step aside if you need to, but do not panic. We protect first, act second." Lyra could hardly breathe. She remembered the first attack. The human ship had absorbed hits that would have destroyed a dozen other vessels, but this was bigger. The unknown fleet now advanced with intent, ready to strike at the smaller ships. "They're heading straight for us," Lyra whispered. Hale's voice was steady. "Good, let them see what humans can do." The dawn path trembled as the first volleys of enemy fire lit the void. Energy beams struck the smaller fleet ships, shields flickered, hull plating splintered. Lyra could hear the distant alarm tones echoing in the observation deck. Then the Atlas bound moved forward. It glided with ease, massive sections of its hull absorbing impacts that would have torn apart any other ship. Lyra pressed closer to the glass. Even from here, the humans' presence was impossible to ignore. They were giants standing against the darkness, immovable and unshakable. One human crew member appeared on the external deck in a reinforced suit. Lyra gasped. He floated in the vacuum of space, gripping a structural beam. Around him, sparks flew as he welded a damaged hull plate back into place. She had seen drones repair ships before, but this was different. The human moved with purpose, using sheer strength and skill to keep the ship and the fleet intact. His muscles bulged under the suit, yet every movement was careful, controlled. One wrong motion could have crushed a smaller vessel nearby. They are holding it together, Lyra whispered, with their own hands. Yes, Hale said softly over calm. When the machines cannot do enough, humans step in. We hold where others cannot. Another human appeared, guiding a pod that carried injured aliens from a damaged ship. He carefully maneuvered through the void, placing the pod onto the Atlas-bound's deck without a single scratch. Lyra's eyes widened. She had never seen anyone carry so much weight with such care. They save everyone, she murmured, even the smallest. Hale's voice was calm, but there was pride in it. Strength is useless if it is selfish. Humans have power so we can protect. That is our choice. That is our responsibility. The enemy fleet fired again. Lyra's stomach twisted, but she forced herself to watch. The beams struck the Atlas-bound's massive shields, yet the ship barely moved. Each impact was absorbed, deflected, or repaired instantly. Drones darted like lightning, intercepting debris and energy bursts. Every human crew member acted in harmony, coordinating repairs, countermeasures, and defense with perfect timing. Lyra's fear turned into awe. The humans were not reckless. They were precise. Every move had purpose. Every action mattered. Even the sheer size of the ship, so intimidating, was used to protect others, not to attack. They are unstoppable, she whispered, even if the enemy keeps coming. Yes, Hale said. That is the point. Humans endure because we choose to protect. That is our power. From the observation deck, Lyra saw more humans in spacesuits. They worked in teams to stabilize damaged sections of the fleet's smaller ships. One lifted a massive hull panel single-handedly, positioning it perfectly while repair drones completed the work. Another guided a small shuttle carrying injured aliens, adjusting its course as enemy fire continued to streak past. Lyra's small chest swelled with admiration. She had feared the human size at first. Now she understood. They were giants, yes, but they were careful, deliberate, and aware. Every ounce of strength was applied to saving lives, not destroying them. The enemy fleet paused, confused by the humans' unwavering presence. They tried a new attack pattern, hoping to overwhelm the Atlas-bound. But the humans were ready. Reinforcements arrived instantly. Shield projectors rotated to cover every angle. Counter-drones intercepted energy bursts mid-flight. The enemy realized too late that brute force alone could not break the human line. Every ship in the fleet watched in disbelief as the massive human vessel absorbed hits, repaired itself in real time, and continued to stand between danger and the vulnerable ships. They underestimate them, Lyra said. They think size makes humans slow, but they are fast. They are precise, they are careful giants. Yes, Hale replied. We move deliberately but with purpose. That is what humans do. We survive where others fail. Lyra could see the enemy ships retreating. They had learned the hard truth. Attacking humans meant facing both size and intelligence, strength tempered with care. The smaller fleet vessels, once terrified, now regrouped behind the Atlas-bound, shielded by the massive human presence. The battle ended as quickly as it had begun. The enemy vanished into deep space. The fleet survived. Not a single life was lost, and the humans, still massive, still steady, remained in position, ready to act again if needed. Lyra turned to Hale. Your people, your size, it is incredible, but what matters is what you do with it. You protect instead of destroy. Hale's expression was calm but warm. Size is nothing without purpose. Strength is meaningless without care. Humans endure not because we are giants, but because we choose responsibility. That is what matters. Lyra nodded slowly. She thought of her small homeworld, her fragile ships, her careful tools. She realized how different humans were, not just in size, but in mindset. They planned for everything, acted to protect, and stood where no one else could. You are like guardians, she said softly. Yes, Hale replied. Guardians, protectors, observers, we act because we can. That is the choice humans make. The fleet began to move again, this time in formation behind the Atlas bound. Lyra watched the humans guide them, coordinating every move, preventing collisions, and ensuring no ship fell behind. Even the smallest vessels were given priority. She felt a new kind of hope. The human size was intimidating at first, yes, but now she understood. That size, combined with intelligence and responsibility, was a promise. A promise that even the smallest, weakest ships could survive in a dangerous galaxy. Lyra recorded her observations carefully. Every heroic act, every moment of careful strength, every decision to protect instead of dominate, she wrote it all down. When she returned to her people, they would see not just the human size, but their purpose. From the observation deck, Lyra looked at the massive Atlas bound. It blocked the stars, casting its shadow across the fleet. And yet, instead of fear, she felt safety. A human giant stood there, not to threaten, but to guard. Her small hand rested against the glass. She whispered softly, almost to herself, "Some things are too big to fear because they exist to keep the rest of us alive." And in that moment, Lyra understood something she had never realized before. Humans were not only strong, they were careful, protective, responsible. Their size was a shield, their strength a promise. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. And Lyra knew she would tell the story. The battle had ended, but the stars still seemed quieter than usual. Lyra stood on the observation deck of the Dawn Path, her small frame pressed lightly against the glass. She stared at the massive silhouette of the Atlas bound as it hovered beyond the fleet, silent and calm. It was too big, too immense, too different. And yet Lyra no longer feared it. She could feel its presence in her chest, not as intimidation, but as reassurance. The Dawn Path had survived attacks that would have destroyed any ordinary vessel. The smaller ships in the fleet had survived because the humans had acted. And more than that, they had acted with precision, care, and understanding. Every human move had been deliberate. Every ounce of their strength had been applied to saving lives. Lyra exhaled slowly. She could still hear the echo of the last enemy blasts in her mind, but she could also remember the calm, steady voice of Captain Hale as he had directed the human crew. "Strength alone is nothing," he had said. "Purpose and care are what matter." She realized now that he had been right. The fleet's admiral came aboard the Dawn Path via comm. "Commander Veth, report." Veth straightened. "All fleet ships accounted for. Minor damage only. Enemy has retreated. Atlas bound provided full defense. No casualties." There was a pause, then the admiral's voice softened. "Lyra, I want your report as well, your observations during the engagement." Lyra swallowed. She had already begun writing her notes, but putting them into words for the admiral felt heavier. How could she describe what she had seen without sounding like exaggeration? Humans were too big, too strong, too careful, and yet it was true. I will report exactly what I saw," she said. The human vessel, Atlas bound, intervened to protect the fleet. Every movement was precise. Every action was designed to save others, not harm. Their size, their strength, it was used responsibly as a shield for the vulnerable. And their crew, they acted with care in every single moment. There was silence on the other end of the comm. Then the admiral's voice came quietly. "I will read that report personally, Lyra. Thank you." Lyra felt her chest swell with pride, not pride in herself, but pride in what she had witnessed. Humans were remarkable. She turned her gaze back to the Atlas bound. The massive ship seemed to dominate the void, but she could now see something else in its shadow: safety, security, assurance that no matter what dangers the galaxy threw at the fleet, someone would stand between it and harm. Commander Veth approached her. "I never thought I would say this," he said, shaking his head slowly. "But I am glad they are here. Your people, these humans, they make the galaxy safer." "They are more than that," Lyra said. "They are careful giants. They are protectors. They do not use their strength to dominate. They use it to guard." Veth nodded. "I see now why the fleet calls them a miracle. I saw it with my own eyes, and yet words do not capture it fully." Lyra smiled faintly. She knew exactly what he meant. She had felt it. The humans were preparing to leave. Hale's voice came over calm as ever. "All fleet ships stabilized. Atlas bound will depart now. Keep moving safely. We will monitor from distance. Lyra felt a pang of loss. She had grown accustomed to the humans' presence. Their size had seemed overwhelming at first, but now it felt like a protective blanket over the fleet. Will we see them again? She whispered. They always come when needed, Veth said. You will know when. Lyra watched as the Atlas bound began to glide away. It moved slowly, its massive hull cutting through the starlight. Every section of the ship seemed alive with purpose. Crew members moved in perfect coordination, drones patrolled the exterior, and every system operated flawlessly. As the ship passed out of sight, Lyra turned to the bridge crew. We have witnessed something extraordinary, she said softly. Something the galaxy must remember. Humans, they are not just large. They are responsible, intelligent, and capable of protecting what others cannot. Their size is a gift, not a threat. The bridge crew nodded, some in silence, others whispering their own amazement. Lyra began to write a final note in her report. Human size is more than strength. Human purpose is more than action. Together they are a force that shields the vulnerable and guards the galaxy. Too big to ignore, too responsible to fear. Days passed. The fleet continued its journey through the system, repairing minor damages and returning to normal operations. Lyra found herself thinking constantly about what she had learned. She walked through the corridors of the Dawn Path, small and light, contrasting sharply with the memory of the massive human vessel. But she no longer felt fragile. She understood something fundamental. Humans used their size and strength for a reason. They planned for the worst. They acted for others. They endured so others could live. And that lesson changed how she saw her own world. When the fleet reached the next trade station, Lyra presented her report. Every sentence was filled with precise observation, every detail accounted for. The station command read it aloud. The humans are too large to ignore. They are protectors. Their presence ensures safety for all. Observers note their intelligence, care, and coordination. Fleet safety has increased tenfold with their assistance. Whispers ran through the room. The human's reputation had grown, but Lyra could see something more than awe in the eyes of her peers. Hope. They had seen what she had seen. Later, Lyra returned to her cabin and looked at the stars. She remembered the first time she had seen the Atlas bound. She had whispered, "It's too big." Now she understood. The size was not frightening, it was reassuring. It represented responsibility, strength used with care, power used to protect the weak. Lyra smiled. The galaxy had encountered humans for the first time in a serious crisis. She knew it would not be the last. Stories of human giants would spread across systems, not as a warning, but as a promise. A promise that when danger came, someone would stand, someone would endure, someone would protect. And she, Lyra, would carry the truth in her report. Some things are too big to fear because they exist to keep the rest of us alive. The stars shone quietly as the dawn path continued its journey. Lyra felt a sense of peace. She had learned something the galaxy had not yet realized. Humans were not only strong, they were careful, intelligent, and responsible. Their size was unmatched, yes, but their purpose was greater. She whispered one final thought to herself. We should never forget what humans do. They are guardians in the void. They are giants with care, and the galaxy is better because of them. Far ahead in the distance, the shadow of the Atlas bound passed once more across the stars, massive and steady. Lyra watched until it disappeared into the void. And in her heart she knew the humans were too big to ignore, and the galaxy would never forget it.